Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today. I appreciate everybody who's coming in. My name is Eli Worrell. I'm one of our account managers over here at Onyx. And yeah, we're just going to be kind of going through how we've seen search and rescue teams best to use Onyx while they're out in the field. Um, a few of the things that we're going to cover are how to use our group location sharing, how to navigate the map so that you understand where these tools are, how to best use them. We're going to go over some of the best practices that we've seen. So we've talked to a lot of search and rescue teams, and this is kind of some of the things that they've been using while they're out in the field. Hopefully, it helps you adapt while you're out there so you can use some of these techniques or see how something is used so you can adjust on the fly as necessary. I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes here, make sure everybody has gotten in that would like to join. And for those of you who missed it, thank you again for joining us here. We do have a Q&A feature. So if you're looking to ask questions, you can either drop those directly in the chat or you can send it to the Q&A feature. The Q&A guarantees that it'll get answered and not lost, but if you do answer it in the chat, we'll be happy to help you out. Um, yeah, but to get started, if you guys would like to let us know, where you're from, what you guys are wanting to do, we'd always love to hear about that. And then yeah, I will go ahead and get us started here. So we're going to be going over multiple different forms of what Onyx is. So you're going to see me use what we call our web map. So that is what is pulled up right now. Our web map is how you can access the app on your computer. We also are going to go over the app on your phone. And in turn, it'll be the same as what you could use on a tablet. So the app for your phone and tablet are going to look the same, while the computer is going to look slightly different. I will say, when we are going over these features, everything I'm going to go over is available both on the computer and on your phone. If there are any changes, I like to let you know about it. And you'll see there are a few places where things are going to be located a little bit differently, whether you're looking at the computer or on your phone. And I'll give you some cues about where to look at that. I like to show the web map first just because it lets me keep a lot better eye contact with the camera, so I'm not looking like I'm avoiding you guys the entire time. We'll avoid you a little bit later on when I'm going over that phone. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started here. So on the web map version, you're going to see when you're zoomed out, you will have access to all 50 states with our Onyx for Business membership. So no matter what state you're looking at, you are going to have all of the private boundaries and all of the public boundaries that you can see who owns those and where those property boundaries are going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that on the web map. You can use two fingers on a trackpad, you can use the scroll button, or you can use these plus and minuses on this right side. If you're on your phone, best way to zoom in is two fingers together, pushing them apart, and that'll let you zoom in here. So I'm going to zoom in on my location. So I'm located over here in Missoula, Montana. You'll notice that I don't have a blue dot showing up. That's partially because I am on the web map and partially because I am also at my house. But if you are on your phone, you're going to see a blue dot showing up right where your location is. Um, when we're first starting to navigate the map here, there's a few things that you'll want to do first just to make sure that the view is exactly what you're wanting to have on there. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hide all my content just to make sure it's as clean as possible. When you're first looking at the map, you're going to see our default is going to have the public and private lands, and it's going to be our basic satellite imagery, and it's also going to be in the 2D mode. There's some ways to change that so that you can add more to it and remove some things and get it exactly the way you want. So first thing to do is you can see where we have a satellite view, hybrid view, and a topographic view. The hybrid is going to just be satellite view with those topo lines overlaid over the top. We have folks that really like to use this because you're able to not only see the satellite imagery, but you're able to see all of those different topographic changes while you're out there without needing to switch between different things. I have I tend to switch between all three, and that's how we've seen most crews end up using it because there's certain advantages to having just satellite or just topo as well. So with our topographic view, we now have our LiDAR imagery available. Where this really comes in handy is this gives you a very high definition view of what is underneath the tree canopy. So you'll see as I zoom in on some of these mountains here, I can zoom in and I can see where there are rock formations, and I can see where a lot of these different, just minor changes happen that can make a huge difference when you're going out and you're trying to do a search very quickly and very effectively. Because when you are looking at some of these mountains, they do hide some cliff walls, some really steep points, stuff that doesn't necessarily get captured as well just looking at a topo view or just looking at satellite. So you can see here, I have a pretty good cliff right up this little drainage. So if we were going out and somebody was lost up here, it is possible that I might try to take the most direct path just straight up. Where when I have this LiDAR turned on, it is going to show me like, hey, there is an actual cliff wall there. Versus if we just have our regular satellite view, it doesn't look that bad. It looks like there might be some shale in there, and you can kind of infer some things just because you guys are out in the woods all the time. However, this just gives you a really quick idea of, hey, I don't want to go there because that is a lot of rocks. It's the same when you're looking at drainages as well. So you can see when I have this topo view turned on, not only am I getting these blue lines to show up that are signifying where there's intermittent streams or where there's just going to be water. It's also going to let me see where those creek bottoms are and how they might look. Where, again, if we just have our satellite imagery turned on, you're not really getting any of that. So, highly recommend switching between them so you can see not only what does the ground look like on a satellite image, but what might be underneath that tree canopy that can potentially help or hurt our search. So, with that topographic view turned on here, I'm also going to show you that we have our 3D imagery. So there's a couple of different ways to activate that. So you'll see here, if I'm using a trackpad or if I'm using my mouse, I can just go ahead and click two fingers and I can raise and lower that image. And if I just wanted to turn it on manually, I go over here to where it says Topo 2D and turn on 3D mode. And you can zoom in and out, you can get higher and lower views, and really get a sense of what you're going to be going into before you head in there. It's one of those, look twice before you walk, but it is so handy to make sure that when you're going out there, you're taking the most effective path you can possibly do to get there and get everybody arrive safely and get there as quickly as you can. All right. So with our imagery types as well, you'll notice that we have a couple of different options here. So we not only have our LiDAR imagery, but if I go back to our satellite view, we also have our recent imagery available. And what that is a 2 week old image that you can scroll back in time with. This is incredibly helpful when you're looking at what does this look like on the ground? What might conditions be when we're going in there? And what could have changed between when our standard satellite image was taken and when this actually is occurring? So this is the most recent imagery we can get. You'll notice when you do zoom in, it is not quite as clear as our regular base map imagery, but you'll see that it is getting better and better. So with our recent imagery, when you turn this on, if you would like to scroll back in time, you go to this all dates, you can select a time, or you can just use these arrows to go back and forth, showing, what has changed in this past. So where this becomes really helpful, especially when we're more in these mountainous areas, is when you are looking at the winter time. So you'll be able to go in and see, hey, is this road clear yet? Is there snow on it? So I can go through and I can see, hey, in February, there's a lot of snow and it kind of lasted through March. But, now that we're getting to the middle of summer, all of that stuff is gone. So if we're going out there and we need to plan a route, or if we need to see where somebody might be going, they're likely not going to be going up into the snow. So we can kind of have a better sense of what might be going on that way, helping you guys plan and make better decisions when you're out in the field. I'm gonna go ahead and go back to today here. You'll notice that I'll be scrolling around the map quite a bit, and I'm sure you guys are as well as you're getting in, starting to look at it. If you get to a point where you are somewhere you didn't mean to be and you need to just get back to where you are right now, I like to highlight this little crosshair button. It's both on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, both on the phone and on the computer. And that'll just recenter your map. So when you're spread out and looking at other stuff, you can just hit that crosshair button. It's going to pull you right back to your location, just making it a little bit easier to realign yourself on where you're at. Especially because you can turn these maps, you can move them around, and sometimes, it's just everything looks upside down. Just hitting that crosshair button recenters everything, gets you back to what you need. All right. So we'll go ahead and go back to our standard imagery here. So I'm going to turn that recent imagery off. One thing I will mention real quick about our 3D maps is if you live in a little bit flatter country, 3D isn't quite as awesome as when you um, have some mountains to look at. However, when you are in those more flat areas, you can still use this 3D elevation exaggeration to really get a good sense of what that ground really looks like. So you can pull everything up just a little bit. So stuff that you might have missed in our regular satellite, like this hill here, that's going to be a impeding hill if I'm trying to walk up it. And I wouldn't have seen that unless I use that elevation exaggeration. So again, something where just a tool in the toolbox to help you guys make better decisions while you're out in the field. And again, that's just that 3D elevation exaggeration. If you're on your phone, it'll be where this plus and minus button turns on. So you can turn that up and down as necessary. All right, go back to the 2D map here. So when we are starting to look at what actually is populating on the map that could be helpful, when you're making these decisions when we're going out into the field, you'll see that when you zoom in on the map, you're going to have property ownership show up. So if somebody was up this Sweat House Creek Trail, um, and we are doing a search around it, because if the last known was somewhere down here, you might have to contact some landowners, let them know that you're going to be on their property, or at the very least, just see who might own it, see if they've seen anybody, and things like that. So that can be accomplished just by zooming in. It'll tell you the name, or you can just click on the property, and that's going to pull up what we call our query card. There's a lot of information on this query card, and you're going to see me reference it a few times throughout this webinar. But the query card is going to tell you who owns that property, what their tax address is, and which county you're in. So if you are in a spot that might be in one county, might be in a different county, whenever you click on that map or whenever you query something, it is going to tell you which county you're in to help you with any sort of jurisdictional questions. It's also going to give you the coordinates and the elevation. So when you are looking to report coordinates back, or if you're just trying to get your location, just touching the map, you can copy these and paste them into any sort of messaging system as well. So when you're going in here, out of the query card, you can also see that you can um, add some waypoints, add some photos, and we'll be going over that a little bit later. All right. So, what our property ownership is what we refer to as our layers. So, the layers are going to be what you can turn on and off to change that view of your map to be as effective as possible for what you're doing that day. Now, our private lands and government lands are going to be at the top here because they are so important when you're out there. Knowing where you're standing is, the foundation of Onyx. But you can also see if you scroll down that we have a few other buckets of layers that can be extremely helpful. So, first one I like to mention is our current conditions layer. So we are getting to the heat of summer here, and we've been fortunate not to have very many in Montana. However, wildfire season is upon us, and you'll notice that we have several fires throughout the country, and those are going to all show up with any sort of boundaries that we might have. So when I come up here, you're going to see this is an active burn. So when I click on that um, fire here, it's going to tell me what the name of the fire is, when we last checked what happened, when the source was updated, what percentage contained it is, and who's actually managing it. So if there is somebody missing somewhere close, you're able to see where those burns are and who to contact to get any information from it. So that active wildfire layer, incredibly useful when you're out in the summertime, making sure that you guys are staying safe out there. When we go back to the current conditions layer, and again, that's just the hunt map layers. That's the top center part of your screen when you're on your computer. But if you're on your phone, it's on the bottom left side of the screen. Um, so when we scroll back down to that current conditions, you'll see that we have a few different weather layers. So we have a precipitation radar. So if you want to see if there's a storm front rolling in, something you need to prepare for, that happens all right in Onyx so that you can see when you zoom out here. I'll see if there's anything coming near us. We've been pretty dry today. But you can see it's going to tell you where those storm fronts are, where they're moving into. So the last thing I will mention is that we do now have a cell coverage layer. Now, what cell coverage is going to allow you to see is what service you're going to probably have while you're out there, or where you're going to lose that service. So that's just going to be a color-coded map. Darker red it is, the better the service. The lighter red, the worse the service. And when you zoom in here, it does start to tell you. So you can see here in these watermarks that likely you're going to have 4G in this spot, but when you're moving around, you'll get better or worse depending on the area. So these all come directly from the cell companies, so this is what their expected is. We do update them as regularly as possible, but you can go in, you can see Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, and you can kind of infer from there. So a couple of use cases we've seen with that cell coverage layer is, like I said, knowing if you are going to an area that you're likely not going to have service, making sure you're downloading offline maps so you can use everything on Onyx still. And also, if you are out there and there's an emergency phone call needed to be made, you can see where you can best find service in the area that you're in. So you can turn that cell coverage layer on if you are out of service and use it to find service again. So you can make a call out. Yeah, if like a radio fails or anything like that. All right. So there's a few other layers that I'm going to touch on here. We won't go too in depth with it. Um, the next one is going to be under our land and access layers. Now, land and access is again going to hunt map layers, scrolling down. Um, the big one that I like to mention in this is our slope, angle, and aspect layer. So the slope angle layer, when you turn that on, is going to give you a very visual representation of what slopes you're going to be walking on when you're trying to get to trying to get to the location. You can't always choose your path when you're getting up there. However, if you have a chance to look at it and pick one route over another, it can drastically increase your response time. So if you are looking to get to a spot here on the top of the hill, you can see if I came in on this road, it's going to be incredibly steep to walk up to it, versus if we just went back a little ways, there's a really easy path up and around. So again, that's just ex like a very visual way of seeing what slope you might be walking up to help you make those very quick decisions while you're out in the field. Right. So also you'll see here that we do have our recent layers. This is a new addition. So when you're turning these layers on and off, instead of having to go back to those buckets, turn one off so you can clear up the map, you can just use our recent layers, turn them off and on. So if you have a list of 5 or 6 layers that you really like to use, they'll probably stay here on the recent so you can turn them on and off very effectively. All right. So as I'm kind of rounding out our layer discussion here, I'll go to the roads, trails, and rec layer. So this becomes incredibly important when you're looking to, see any sort of like lost person behavior, set up your hasty searches. Big ones to mention are our trail slopes and our trail mileages. The trail slope is going to give you the zoom back in on my spot here. So the trail slopes are going to give you a color-coded version, very similar to our slope angle layer, but for all of these trails that folks might be walking on. So to kind of help you narrow down, if somebody's lost, they're likely going to take the easiest path. So you can see which trail is going to be the steepest, which ones are going to be a little bit more flat, which ones you might want to take when you're getting into that location, and which ones you might want to avoid. So there are going to be green, yellow, red. The darker red it is, the steeper it is, versus green is going to be a little bit flatter. It also helps highlight these trails for you so that you can see, what the trail name might be, what the trail ID is, um, what it's accessible by, some non-motorized open and close dates, who the managing agency is. And that's all by just going in and again, clicking on the map, pulling up this query card. You can see all of that trail information. And that is just making sure that you have the trails and the trail slopes turned on under the hunt map layers. So last layer I will really mention here is our motorized roads and trails layer. That is going to be what pulls up these purple lines. Motorized roads and trails are very, very handy when you are looking to get any sort of road information while you're making the decision of which roads to take, which areas, somebody might have taken. You can go in, you can just click on that road. You'll not only see what the road name is, what the road ID is, but also what it's accessible by. Now, where that becomes very important is if you are looking to get into an area as quickly as possible, it's best to know what equipment you're going to need before you get out there. Now, this is going to let you know, hey, this is accessible by overlanding vehicles, any sort of high clearance 4x4. So as long as I got some sort of off-roading type vehicle, I can get up this road. Versus if you go to a hash mark road like this one, it's going to tell you it's only accessible by side by side. So it looks like a good road. I might have thought that I could just take my truck down it, but it's really going to be a bear to get up and down, just in a regular full size pickup. Versus if you do have that side by side, it's going to give you a little bit quicker way of getting in there, and it'll also let you know if there's any open and close dates, things like that, so that you can make sure when you're getting in there, you're bringing the right tool for the job. Take a quick break here. right. So now that we got the map looking pretty much the way we want it to look, there's going to be some information that we're going to need to add to get all of our folks into the right area, doing the right stuff, and using it as effectively as possible. So Onyx is designed to be used for your entire team rather than just one individual. So we need to get everybody all onto the same page. And the way we do that is by utilizing our markups and our collaborative folders to get all of this information that we have to everybody else on our team. So you'll see here, I got a quick folder set up. This is just a very quick search that would be fairly basic, but it shows you how we can utilize a few different tools while we're out in the field. So first thing that you're going to need is a waypoint. This is the foundation of a lot of our markups. So waypoints are going to mark exactly where something is to let you get into that location, view it later on, or mark something that you're going to need to hit. There's a few different ways you can add waypoints. So my favorite way is using this add waypoint feature here on the top right-hand side of the screen. Again, I'm on my computer. If you're on your phone, it's just where it says Tools, bottom center, and then hitting that add waypoint function. With that add waypoint, you can drag it around wherever you need it. You can zoom in as close as you want and make sure that that is put right where it needs to go. I always recommend adding a waypoint name because you can show that name on the map, so it becomes a very good indicator of what is actually there. So we're going to just name this one Test Waypoint 1 because I have a few other ones set up already. You'll notice that we have about 100 different types of waypoints. Some of these are going to be a little bit more hunting based, but there's a lot of different ones in there to let you mark out and make it very easy to see what you're talking about with that waypoint later on. So we're going to do an access waypoint, just saying, hey, this is where we can start getting into stuff. And then you can change that waypoint color to, match the search itself so that if you're going back later on, if you have multiple searches going on that week, you can color coordinate them to show which waypoints were for which one. You can add in notes as well. So if there is something important to note about this particular waypoint, so one thing we like to say is like gate codes. So you can put in a gate code on there. That'll share out with your team. Anything else that they might need to know for that specific location. Write it in the notes. It lets you put up to, past 500 characters. So you can put in quite a bit of information per waypoint if you need to. You can also add photos. So you can add photos by taking a photo directly with your phone. Or if you've already taken the picture and you have it somewhere else, you can upload that from your photo library as well. All right. So once you've created a waypoint, there's a few different things that you can do with that waypoint itself. So first is going to be setting a waypoint radius. So when we're going through lost person behavior, there's always going to be a certain radius that is set up for each individual that could be potentially lost. Now you can go through, you can adjust this to miles or yards, whichever is easiest for you and whatever the situation requires. But if you wanted to do a 5 mile radius, we're going to do a 2.5 mile radius because that's going to be huge. Um, it'll pull it up and let you see everything around that. You can then edit it as well. So if I came through and I meant to put, oh, we actually only needed 250 yards, not 2.5 miles. I can go through, edit it, make it a little bit smaller. Or if it requires, you can see, halfway out, full way. It's going to give you that best practice there. All right, so that's kind of how we add those. The next one I like to discuss. So you'll see here, I have a mixture of waypoints. I have a route that I've drawn into the location, and then we have some line tools, kind of showing our quick grid that we've drawn out. So with the waypoints, so I added a waypoint here at the start and a waypoint for the parking. I then went ahead and added the a route. So this is the route into the location that we have. What that does is that allows you to draw out which exact roads to take while you're getting into a locations to make sure everybody's getting in there as effectively as possible. And when you're driving out in the woods, you know that there's going to be, five or six roads that are going to be around that might get you to that location, or they might be some red herrings, or just might not go anywhere at all. This route tool really makes sure that you get all of your team into that location as quickly as possible. Folks that may have never driven this road before, folks that could be by themselves, it could be dark outside. Having these routes drawn in advance really allows you to ensure that everybody gets there as effectively as possible. With route building as well, when you are on your phone, um, our you can use our driving directions to get turn by turn directions following that route, even when it is in more of these dirt roads. So if you're using like an Apple Maps or a Google Maps, it might take you to the nearest address. Versus if you have these routes drawn already, it's going to follow exactly which roads you know are the best ones to take for that area. And then you'll to add those routes, you're going to want to go up here. Like I said, I'm on the computer, so it's build route here at the top. I can move that, and then if you are on your phone, it is just bottom center part of the screen, where it says tools, and it'll say route builder. So with our route builder, you'll see that it's going to automatically turn on using a snap to feature. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to go from our dispatch start. It's just a click system. So where I click is going to save how far down I've drawn this route. So if I am in a very tight, area, it is going to let me get very granular. I can start saving that. Or if I just want to wait till I'm out in the woods, so I can draw myself all the way out to this trailhead and it'll just go to the nearest spot that I've drawn through. From there, I can start getting a little bit more granular. I can follow these trails. So I can tell my team, hey, make sure you're taking this left trail when you're coming up here. It's a big trail network. So you're going to want to take this route because the other ones are closed or cut off, whatever. Uh, different situations happen. You can go through and you can draw that all the way out so that everybody, when they are getting out there, is as effective um, as possible. So again, that's just kind of drawing it out and then clicking where you need to make some saves. You can click on every turn that you want to make, or you can just continue to draw that out as long as you want. All right. So once we're out here, you'll see here that I have these waypoint names turned on. And to make sure that you have those as well, that is under our settings. So I just scrolled down here to where it says My Account and Settings. I have a little arrow that allows you to go ahead and open that up. So you just click that My Account and Settings, click Settings there, and then it'll be the Show Custom Waypoint Names. So you just want to make sure that that is turned on. And that's just going to show what the name is for all of these waypoints so that you can communicate that faster and more efficiently with your team. Once I've made this, I'm gone ahead. I've already added a waypoint radius here. And then I wanted to create a quick grid off of that waypoint radius so that I know where to send individual teams and that they will have that same information. So I went ahead and I just drew this out using our line distance tool. So that's just up here. That is going to be, it says line distance at the top. And it's also going to be the line distance tool if you go under the tools on your phone. And that is just clicking, same way that we did the route. And I just followed this. I used the halfway point in between to kind of make those boundaries, but you can see that it'll tell you how many yards in between each of these that you are anyway. So if you wanted to do more of a box structure, or if there's a specific yardage that you wanted to break these into, you can get as granular as you would like on that. For just something quick, you can use our reference points on that waypoint radius tool and get those broken out as necessary. And then I like to name these so I know which one's which. So this will be search area 8. And again, you can add notes into it. So if you wanted to put in, you know, who was going to be there, you can put in who's going to be in that specific zone so that you know where everybody is. So you see here when I click on these, it just goes back and forth. So which one's which. Then we also know that there's going to be some higher likelihood areas to find folks than others. So I like to highlight those if it is if it's a lost hiker, maybe I highlight the trails to kind of show where somebody might be. This specific zone was great because it had 4 individual um, trails that all kind of intersected in this one specific point. And then I just went ahead, I used that route builder tool to just track that out really quick so that I can highlight for folks, where that stuff might be. So we'll name that high likely. My naming structure is always kind of fun. So yeah, I would say that a standardized version would be very good for you guys, but I get the fortunate benefit of being able to name it what I would like. So that just kind of highlights, hey, we have this big grid. We know that somebody's likely going to be in this area. We know that the high likelihood spots are going to be in here. And then I know all of this stuff, and now I need to get this out to everybody that's going to be joining our search with us. Now, with Onyx, you can share this all out at once and make it a collaborative feature. So I'll show you a couple of examples what that looks like. To create a quick folder, so we went in here. I already got this created, so this is going to be our search 5. But to create a folder, you just go to My Content, scroll down to where it says New Folder, name the folder, and that'll pull up at the top of your list here. From there, we can go ahead and add content. So when you click on that folder, hit Add Content. There's a few different ways that you can add that content. You can either just click on it, either on your phone or on your computer. So I can just go through, I know the spots I want to use. So I'm just going to start clicking on some stuff to make sure that it's added in. Or I can select it from this list. To make selecting from the list even easier, you can turn on the filter list as map moves. So it's only going to pull up stuff that is in your view that you have here. So you're not looking, if you have 2,000 waypoints added on because you've been using Onyx for a long time, turning on that filter list as map moves just really limits your list down so that it's easier to find the stuff that you need faster. All right, so we've already got a folder created here that has everything in it that we need. I'm going to go ahead, had add our last route in our last box. So I'm going to go in here and I went ahead and I hit this add content button at the bottom. And then I just get to go in and click on my line and click on my route, hit done, and it just adds everything in there. So if I am going through and I want to make sure that I get this shared out, I can go into the My Content, click on the folder. It is going to give me a share option when you're on the phone. So when you have that share option turned on, it's going to let you select a contribute or a view only option. The differences between the view only and the contribute is going to be a view only folder is if I want total control over that folder so that nobody else can add content to it and it's going to remain static. Contribute is if you guys are out on a search, you can add in things like tracks, waypoints, any sort of hazards that you might have seen where stuff it could be or any sort of new information that gets pulled up. If you found somebody, you can go ahead and add that location in, and you can add it just by going to the folder, adding that waypoint to the folder, and it'll share out with everybody else. What that ends up looking like on the map, and we did this, we were fortunate enough to have a training with a sheriff's department over here in Ravalli County. And we were at a property. So I'm going to zoom in here. So this shared folder was created. And you'll notice here, this was an evidence collection. So there's a few things on here that you might want to, there's some blood, some bullets. But when we are looking at these tracks, so when you're on your phone, you can create a track. When you're out in the field, all of these tracks that you've created, you can then add them into this shared folder, and it shares out with everybody on the folder so that you can see where people have been, where they might be going, what hasn't been covered, and what's been covered incredibly well. You can then add in waypoints and things like this. So if there was something that you found while you're out there, you can go in, add a waypoint to it, and then it'll also add in some photos as well. So this one was a Coke bottle that they found out there. So they just went in, added a photo, and you can see when it was shared. It also allows you to see who shared it and when they shared it. So they went in, added this waypoint, added this photo. So I know what they were looking at when they added that waypoint and also when they added it and when it was last edited. So that's kind of what that shared folder system looks like. So again, you can do that by creating a folder just directly on your phone or on your computer. And then it's a single text message to everybody that you want to have access to that folder. Now, a lot of folks end up using OnX, for personal use as well as for, search and rescue and a lot of other jobs. One thing we get asked is my hunting data going to be shared out with, everybody on my search and rescue team? The answer to that is no. When we are sharing content, we want to make sure that we do it with the shared folder system because it allows you to control what other people are seeing. So instead of having every single waypoint be shared out with everybody else, it narrows it into exactly what you want to share out with everybody to make sure that it's not cluttering up other folks' maps and that you're retaining any sort of, hunting spot that you might need. So yeah, once we're out there, I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit. I'm going to switch screens here. So bear with me just 1 minute. I'm just going to make sure I covered everything I meant to here. So appreciate you bearing with me. Um, oh, last thing I'll mention here on the computer is actually, no, we'll do that on the phone. It's more fun that way. All right. So what we'll talk about next is our um, group location sharing. So I have a couple of different videos here that I'm going to show you. These are pre-recorded. So it is something where we'll switch back and forth. But you'll see here when we are looking to when you are looking to share your location live with other people on your team, this is going to be how you'll end up doing it. Apologize if it's a little bit quick here. So I'm going to play it a few times just to make sure everybody kind of catches everything. So when you are looking to share your location, it is located under that go and track feature. I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, perfect. So when you're using this, you go to where it says go and track. You'll see there's this little buddy icon over here on the right or on the left. When you click that, it's going to pull up the next screen. So it's going to let me start a group location share. There's going to be a few prompts beforehand, but you'll get to this screen and it'll let you select that invite member or into the group. So with that invite member, it's going to pull up. It's going to pull up either a QR scanning option. So if you're out, you're standing with everybody, you can have them just quickly scan this QR code. Or if they are just driving in, you can go ahead and share via a share link. That share link is going to be shared either through a text message, an email, however you guys like to communicate en masse. That's the best place to do it. So it'll go through. I just selected who I wanted to share it with, texted it out, and then it actually will go in. And once that person accepts the invite, you'll then be able to see their location. So I'm going to switch screens here. Oh, wrong one. Apologize, guys. So once that pulls up, this is what it's going to look like. So we're moving around. It's going to show the partners. When you're out there, it's going to show their location. It's going to show my location as we're moving around. And it's going to see, when that's moving, where they end up going. So that's going to be the view once you're out there. We met up at a certain parking location, shared out that, and then we could see when we were walking apart where the other person was. Just lets you see right now. It will let you see where they're walking live. There are a few limitations with it. It is available in cell service right now, or if you have connection to any sort of satellite Wi-Fi. If a person does lose, if they do lose service or if they lose access, what will happen is it'll show up their last known location, and it'll say that they are offline. So when you're out there, it'll just kind of put their last known, put their offline status on, and when they get back into service, it'll just pop it right back up, and you'll see where they ended up going. So it's a very powerful tool when you're out in the field, just really letting you see where folks are, making sure that they're all maintaining safety and that if something does happen, you can get to them very quickly when you're out there. So again, that is just by going to the go and track feature, hitting that group location button, inviting everybody either through a text message or having them scan that QR code. And then once they're in, you'll just see this exact view where it'll show the initials of the person and your location so you can see who's walking and where they are. All right. Next thing I'll show you real quick is a quick demo of our Onyx navigation. So we were navigating out to this spot. It's Patty Canyon if you're up in Missoula. So I pulled it up. I had a I had a shared waypoint, so somebody had sent me this waypoint. I went ahead, I clicked on it, went to the driving directions option, and then it kind of went through and lets you just get turn by turn directions. And that was up a pretty good dirt road. So when we get up there, it just lets you see, right where your line is and where you end up needing to turn. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get my app pulled up here so I can show you a few of the differences. So one last screen jump here. I do apologize. It takes me just a couple minutes to get the app on the phone pulled up. All right. Perfect. So now that we are on that, on the web or on the app on your phone, I do apologize. It gets a little bit laggy as we're going through here, but it is going to show you that you can see all of these waypoints. You can still see the tools at the bottom. Oh, apologize. Logged into a wrong account. That is unfortunate. One second. What is nice with Onyx as well, as we were talking previously, folks do like to have a personal Onyx as well as a more work or a search and rescue based Onyx. So you can always log out and log back in to any other account as you're using it to make sure that you keep your waypoints separate if it is something that you're using both a work and a personal use. Apologize. Zoom is fighting me, guys. Here we go. Okay. So there's a few different changes that you're going to see on the app on your phone. So when we are looking at this, um, you'll see here where that group location share, to end it, you just go in, click that same blue dot and hit end group. Make sure that everybody is out of there. Then there's a few different options that you're going to have. First is this go and track option. So we not only have that share location button that you can turn on, but that's also where you can record a track. So when we were looking at the search earlier, we had those boxes drawn out. We had all of those blue lines that all of the officers had walked. This is where you turn on that tracking feature. So when we hit that record track, it is going to follow a cookie crumb trail exactly where I've been walking. So I can see where I've been, and also I can save and share that out with everybody else on my team to make sure they're seeing where I've been as well. The options that we have talked about, those are all located under the tools. So when you click on tools at the bottom, it's going to give you that add waypoint, area shape, compass mode, things like that. So that when you're in there, you're able to still use all the tools while you're out in the field using the app. You'll see if I double click my crosshair button here, it's going to pull up a blue flashlight in front of my blue dot. That's going to track with the top of my phone. So if I am out in the field, I'm looking to navigate myself to somebody else, I can either have that blue flashlight turned on, or I can hit this compass button at the top there, and it'll pull up the compass mode. So I not only have this line pulling out, showing exactly where I'm looking, but I also have the azimuth at the top. Yeah. So next thing to kind of go over is, like we mentioned, everything is available with service as well as without service, but you'll want to make sure that you're downloading an offline map before you go out of service. Now, our offline maps, they are not something where you need to make sure you turn those on and off. As long as you have an offline map downloaded, it will just seamlessly transfer. So if you are walking and you are on kind of an edge of service case where you have service in one spot but not at another, when you walk into that out of service spot, it'll just continue going and continue working, and you won't notice the change. So to create an offline map, you just go to where it says offline maps, bottom left side of the screen, hit new offline map, and you'll see I have this box that I can zoom in and out with. Everything inside of that box is going to be what's downloaded. So I can zoom that out as far as I need to, get the area that I want. Then it gives me an option here. So I have a map detail option. This is going to help you save data on your phone and also download larger or smaller maps. I have never had an issue with a medium resolution map. It gives you very clear offline or satellite imagery, so you can zoom into about 500 feet, as well as letting you download about a 30 by 30 mile area. It's not going to be as high a quality satellite image as if you downloaded that high resolution map. But with that medium resolution, I find that I can download a larger map using less data than I can using the high resolution, where you'll see here that it drops it down to about a 7 mile square. So you can go through, you can zoom in and out, kind of get that however you would like. But I tend to use that medium resolution map as we go through. So now that I have that area found, I'm going to name this test one. All you need to do is hit save. It's then going to start downloading here. So I have this pulled up. It takes just a few minutes to download. You'll see once it is downloaded, it'll switch into that green check mark. That green check mark just means that it is downloaded And if something isn't downloaded, it'll be a pause button that looks like this, or it will look like a downward facing arrow. That downward facing arrow just means that you still have the boundary there, but it's just has not been downloaded to that device. One other important thing to note when you are using multiple devices while you are out in the field, you do need to download your offline maps to each device. So it is not something where you can download it right on your phone, go onto your tablet, and it's going to download automatically. It is device specific. So when you go onto the tablet, you'll still have that boundary just like this. It'll have a downward facing arrow, and you just click that downward facing arrow and it'll upload at its convenience. Um, you'll see here, I do have a update available. We put that on there anytime there is an update made somewhere on our maps. Now, I would say that updates are important to do, but it is not something where you need to update it every time before you go out because it'll likely say it on most days. We make very regular changes to the map, just make sure everything's as updated as possible. If you are going offline, as long as you have that green check mark, it is going to work. You don't always need to go through and update the map every single time you're going out. So to update it, though, you just click these three dots towards the right, hit update, and then it'll just re-download that so that you have all of that updated information. I like to update my maps about once a month. So I don't do it every time, but just in that once a month time frame, it's going to give me all of the information that I need. All right. Perfect. Yeah, so you'll see here, bottom left side of the screen, that's that hunt map layers that we've been going through. You have your offline maps, you have all the tools on the bottom center. Yeah, really the big changes between the web map version and the app on your phone is going to just be where the tools are oriented and then also having the ability to track yourself. So yeah, if you are on the app on your phone, hitting that go and track, it's going to let you share that location. It's going to let you record where you've been walking. Make sure that you guys have all that information possible. All right. Last thing I'm going to go over is the admin console. So this is a new application that we're coming out for. This is only for Onyx for Business. So when you are adding your entire team, our admin console is going to let you add and remove people very quick and very efficiently and pay for everybody all under a single receipt so that you're not chasing down multiple folks trying to see when they've paid, if they've canceled, if somebody hasn't joined. What this allows you to do is add your entire team and make sure that folks that are using it have access still. And if somebody has left or isn't using it at all, you can go in and remove them and open up a seat for somebody else. So you'll see here that there is three different options. So you have a option for a owner, an admin, or a member. A owner is going to be able to purchase additional memberships. An admin is going to be able to add and remove people. And then a member is only going to be able to see who's on here. They're not going to be able to make any changes. So owners have the most ability to make changes so they can add and remove people, purchase additional seats, remove licenses. An admin, you're only able to go in and change who has access to the seats already purchased. So it really helps you kind of break it out that way. When we are looking at it, there is an ability here to create multiple teams that are all managed by you. So you'll see I have this little arrow up here. If I have a search and rescue team, also a sheriff's department or a fire department, and I want to keep those two separate. So I have a list of volunteers and a list of permanents. We've seen it broken out several different ways, but this allows you to go in and change, which team that you're looking to access. So This is my second team, so it's a smaller team versus the larger, more volunteer type team. So that just helps you keep everything separated, make sure it's just really easy to go in, find who you're looking for, make sure everybody has access. So when you are looking to add people, you go ahead, you hit this add member button. It is just purely off of email addresses. So you can enter in, so we'll do, you can enter in multiple. Or if you have a list of 100 plus licenses that you need to do all at once, you can upload it via a CSV, just downloaded right to your computer. Once you've added in the email addresses, Onyx for Business gives you the ability to choose which license type that you're going to need. What we've been going over today has been the Hunt Elite, and that's what we've seen be most effective for search and rescue teams. So you just go down here, make sure you select the Hunt Elite license and invite that. I will mention we also have a no license option. So if there is a person that's just purely a purchaser or just controlling who has access to Onyx, but they don't actually need the map itself, they can be a no license account member. So this doesn't take up any of the seats that you've purchased, but allows them to make changes if as long as they're selected as an admin or an owner. So once you invite them, they get sent a join organization email. That join organization email, all they got to do is click on it, hit join organization, set a password, and then they're off to the races. If they've had an existing membership, it continues their, it lets them keep all of their same waypoints, all of their information that they've had previously, but just changes where the billing is being sent through. So they wouldn't notice really any changes on their end, but it would allow you to control that billing, make sure it's all under that one receipt. You'll see here you can go to our billing page. It is going to give you the option to see, what the bill is. If you need to update it, it allows you to add and remove members, and also it allows you to view prior invoices. So if you've purchased Onyx for multiple years, you need to submit that. Or if you've just been adding folks throughout the year, it allows you to go in, see what you've paid for, and kind of view those receipts later on if you need to. We also have our Contact Us page. This sends you directly to me right now. So it has our phone number as well as our support email. We're available for you. We want to make sure you're out and able to use the map. We understand that this is a high stress type environment, so we want to make sure we're as available as possible for you when you are out in the field, so that if anything does happen or if somebody's having trouble getting access, we're here to help. We want to talk to them, make sure that everybody's able to use this, and you guys are able to use this as effectively as possible. Yeah, that's kind of our admin console here. So when you're, last thing I'll go over is when you're looking to remove somebody, all you need to do, hover over their email, hit edit, and then deactivate the license. That will go through and let you remove them from the license. It'll open up an additional seat so that you can add somebody else in. All right. That's pretty much it for what I've had prepared for you guys today. I'll check through here, see if there was any questions that I might have missed, see if there's anything, that I might have went too quick over. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything really right now. Angela or Rory, is there anything I might have missed here?
I'm not seeing anything at the moment. Eli, I want to say thanks everybody for coming and enjoying the ride. Nice job, Eli. This was fun.
Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate you all joining and bearing with me for the better part of an hour here. Um, yeah, no, if you guys have any questions, our email is just onxforbusiness at onxmaps.com. I know it's up here in the um, chat as well. So if you want to copy that down, make sure you can get a hold of us. We're available for you. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.